Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Office Hours. My name is Sohan Maheshwar. I'm a dev advocate at AuthZ. And today we are going to talk about Discord and specifically how Discord does their user permissions. Victor, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, Victor. I'm a software engineer here at AuthZ, working on SpiceDB.
Well, thanks for joining the stream, Victor. Victor, let's get straight into it. Let's talk about Discord's permission system first. Why don't you start?
Sure, thank you. So most people know Discord from its beginnings as the center of the gaming industry, I guess, in terms of communication and building a community. But it grew into a strong competitor to Slack. But it had its humble beginnings in replacing other competitors around voice, primarily voice when gaming online. Um, Discord has a very interesting authorization model, which has certain patterns that are pretty frequent in social web applications. And today I wanted to go over kind of some of these features and do the exercise of modeling them with SpiceDB. So here I'm going to be showing, in my screen, I'm going to be showing the SpiceDB playground where we're going to be coding the schema on the fly. And also I'll have Discord open just to show you, so you also, the audience can see, how does it map, how the things we're doing map to the actual application.
Awesome. Folks, as Victor mentioned, I think Discord it's pretty ubiquitous in not just in gaming but also in other online communities. We also have our own Discord. So if you go to authz.com/Discord, that is the short link to our Discord server. And I'm very excited because I found that compared to, like, say, Slack and some of these other online community platforms, I think Discord has a very unique way that they do permissions, right? So I'd love to listen more about it. Lots of folks in the audience today. We have Yordis, who also says, yes, cool video the other day with the cartoons explaining things. Yes, that was such a great video. Thanks, Jess, who's also here on the stream. Reza is here as well. Hey, Reza, thanks for stopping by. And Jess, of course. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for joining in. Victor, I'm going to share your screen and we can, start talking about Discord.
Awesome. So I think the main concepts that we want to know about Discord is the notion of a server. So a server is kind of like your own club, your own community where you create either text channels or voice channels, and where people can interact and socialize. Discord uses a role-based access control model. So it exposes the role access, the RBAC settings through the server settings. When you go here, you can go to roles, and here's where we can see, where you can create and you can tune some of these concepts. There's the notion of everyone. Everyone is the basic role that it comes baked with. And then you can create stuff. And then another interesting, there's a bunch of interesting aspects about the kind of things that you could do with Discord, but we will basically go over them as we kind of like do the schema. So the exercise, we're going to be building the schema, and we're going to be kind of like reasoning about kind of like why are we doing things, and what are the intuitions that we want to have as we design the system. So we have the SpiceDB playground here, and I'm going to start with the basic concepts. I'm just going to write definition, server. It's also known as guild in the Discord documentation. It's a bit confusing, but it's either known as guild or server.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly shout out that this is the SpiceDB playground where you can model your schema, you can test relationships, you can add relationships, and you can check permissions as well, all within your browser. It's completely open source. The link is what you see. It's called play.authz.com. And essentially, we're building the schema to show the relationship between different objects, right? So we have a server, we have a user, role, and channel. Yeah, Victor.
Yeah. So yeah, we have the key concepts here. We have the server, we have the user, the role, and the channel. And there is another concept that I wanted to introduce, which is the notion of permission overrides, which I think is one of the interesting aspects of Discord. And effectively, what permission overrides are, and it's very common in all applications like GitHub. There's similar behavior. Essentially, there's always a governing entity. In this case, it's the server, where you define your roles and your rules of play in general, and then you can kind of like tune or slightly tweak the settings as they propagate down into the kind of like subcomponents of the community. In this case, it will be the channel. So a permission override allows you to say, well, I have a role that has always a specific permission, but for this channel, I want to revoke it, or I want to add some extra permissions for this specific role. So this is something you can do here in the settings of a channel. I can go to the settings, and then I can go into permissions. You can see here that is the advanced permissions. And so here you can say, well, there's the only role I have here is the everyone role, and it's saying, well, I'm not this kind of like we can revoke something or we can add something, right? I explained what happened there with the private channel, but you can do add, or you can do remove. So you're basically
Hmm.
revoking permission from the role only for this specific channel, or you can add it for this specific channel, and this will leave it as is, right? And so you can say, okay, I'm gonna modify this I'm gonna modify the permissions of the Z demo user. I'm gonna add more stuff to it, or you can define more permissions for both roles, and but also users, revoke or grant permissions for both types of entities. So this is in a nutshell um, what a permission override is. And this is really common. We've seen this in other types of applications, and yeah, it's relatively easy to model with SpiceDB.
Hmm. Also, quickly shouting out, folks. Oh, David. Hey, David. Thanks for joining in. This is office hours format. So if you have any questions or comments, just put it in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. We also have like a checklist going because there's lots to cover. So I have a checklist going here. Fun fact, this is through a virtual camera through OBS because StreamYard doesn't allow us to share two screens at once. So if anyone's figured a better way to actually share two screens at once that's live on StreamYard, let us know. But it works.
So when I start building a schema, I typically start where on the permission checks that I want to perform. And in Discord, in this case, everything happens in the channels. So we want to define the permissions on the channels. Discord has a very extensive set of permissions. So we typically refer to this as like fine-grained permissions or fine-grained access controls, however you like to name it. So I'm not gonna like list all of them. So I'm just gonna focus on a couple of them, because then the intuition to build every other permission is essentially the same. So I'm gonna start by adding to the channel the view channel permission, and I'm gonna add it. I'm gonna add the send message permission. When I say nil, I'm just saying in SpiceDB, I'm just saying, it doesn't have any authorization logic defined to it, so it's going to always deny, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we've added our first permissions, and then we want to start thinking about how we kind of like implement what building blocks do we need to implement something like this. And so we could start by saying, for instance, like a server has a owner, and an owner is a super powerful entity that it can basically, it doesn't abide by all the rules of play. It always kind of like overwrites everything. And so the owner is this super powerful entity.
Yeah.
The documentation refers to a permission called administrator. It's a fine-grained permission, and it's actually something that you can define in the role, but also it's implicitly something that the owner can always do. So I'm going to start by saying that the owner is always an administrator, and this is by definition. Like there's always have to be this user that always can retain control of the system, right, for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think a very very quick way to implement this already is like, well, like I'm pretty sure that administrator can view channel and send messages, right? So how do we get to the owner of the server? Well, we need a relation between the channel and the server, and naturally, as the server defines the rules of play, we're going to be walking from the channel to the server to gather the information we need to compute an authorization decision. And so we do this with relations. And so the idea of walking upwards or downwards typically is using the arrow in the SpiceDB schema. So let's add a relation server so that a channel is associated with the server, right?
Mhm.
Sorry, I misspelled that.
Yeah.
Um,
And in
so
something like SpiceDB, which is based on relationship-based access control or reback, you're always drawing relationships between objects, correct?
Yeah, that's right. It's essentially a graph, and basically you have nodes and you have edges, and those edges have a direction, and so like you can define there's no notion of bidirectional relations in SpiceDB, so you have to specify the direction you want. So in this case, we have one an edge from channel to the server.
So, yeah.
And so if I wanted to say, the owner always can do anything, I will walk from the server to the owner. But because the owner is just, it's just not really it's a specific implementation detail of the server. I want to actually say administrator, because as we will see later on, I would have other concepts. I think there's a bug here. It's not updating the warning. So I think I fix that by basically refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Victor, I have one question actually, but I'm just going to do a quick recap of where we're at right now for folks who just joined. We're talking about Discord's permission system, and Victor is telling us how we can model this using the SpiceDB playground, which is open source. So we have defined few objects, right? We have defined a server, a user, a role, channel, and later on we'll get to an override. So we're building the relationship between these right now. Victor, question for you is the arrow symbol, right? So when defining this, what does that sort of indicate?
Yeah, essentially, we are traversing the graph with the arrow. We are, when you do a permission check, essentially is like, set algebra that we are computing here. We want to compute the users, and users are defined at different parts of the graph. And so like essentially we're just like saying, from the server, I want the users that are defined by the administrator relation. So essentially we're jumping from a channel to the server, and then we have access to some of its fields. So here, if we went from server to administrator, and then we had an owner, it would be returned as the a owner has view channel access, and we can actually test this now via the test relationships. Essentially, here we can set some state on the playground that we can use to experiment and validate the semantics of what we are writing. So I'm gonna start by, I'm just gonna paste here. I have a couple of notes because it would take me super long, but I have a server and actually two channels. I'm gonna see we have the offset server, and we have two channels. One is SpiceDB channel, and the other one is the announcements channel. And we're gonna say that there's an owner. There's an owner called super creatively named as owner, and we're gonna see now here via the set terminal. Set terminal essentially it's a web-based implementation of the SED CLI. SED is the official SpiceDB CLI that allows you to interact with its API. So when you're using that set terminal, you're effectively talking to a SpiceDB instance that is also running in the server. It's all done with WASM, and it's super cool. We have a blog post that talks about how Joey, our CTO, built all of this. So now, if I go and say, set permission check, it runs exactly how it runs in your own terminal when you have set install. I'm gonna say, channel SpiceDB, I wanna, view channel, and I want to say, does the user owner, can the user owner, view the SpiceDB channel? And the answer is true. And we can actually go and see, why the user has access to it by using the explain flag. Explain flag basically just, it dumps into the terminal, how did SpiceDB compute that permission? And here we can see more visually what that arrow and that notion of like traversing or walking up or down means. Essentially, we are going from a user that is, the owner of a server, and that's also linked into the administrator. Let's actually go to the schema so we can see this more visually. This is read from like top down, right? So we started with like, we're checking the view channel, and then it says, administrator, right? So like we're saying the view channel is defined as whatever the administrator permission says. So we can see the jump here, and then administrator says, go and check what the server administrator permission says, which is defined up here. And you can see that jump here. And then the administrator permission in the server says, well, it's the owner. And so we can see that jump here. And finally, when we check, who are the owners of the offset server, that's our relation user owner that we wrote right here. So that's kind of like the, the visual exploration of what traversing the schema. And essentially, this is the fundamental key aspect of like Zanzibar and SpiceDB, which defines this graph and this set of operations that allows you to like move around the graph and define, how do you compute your permissions.
Nice. Just jumping in there, Victor, that Victor also mentioned Zanzibar. If you're not familiar, the Google basically uses an internal authorization system called Zanzibar, and they detailed all of this in a white paper released in, I think, 2018-19. And SpiceDB is sort of is based on that Zanzibar system. So there are some authorization tools out there that are built using that Zanzibar system, which uses REBAC, or relationship-based access control. So you draw relationships, and as you can see on the screen, there is a sort of path from one thing to another to compute a relationship. So yeah, Victor.
That's right. So let's continue with modeling session and see what other aspects of the Discord permissioning system we can define here. So let me switch my windows here. So we've started with the simplest thing, which is the owner, right? But let's get more into more interesting things. So we know that we know there's the notion of like members. So essentially, you can join a server. In this case, for instance, here Sohan joined us, and
You're waving. Yeah.
and said hi. So you can invite folks via URL and basically give them access to the server and interact with other users there. So to me, this is defined at the server level, and to me, this is a natural place to define the members. The members is another relation that we can see here that allows us to list all the users that are part of the server. And also, I think that this would be a great place, as you saw in the UI. Naturally, when you go here in the server settings, you see the roles. So roles are, a server level concept as well, right? So to me, it seems like, in my intuition tells me that we can start by adding the role at the server level, and then we as we kind of like define the provisioning logic, we will see if that's the right place or not. But like conceptually, I think typically it is a good practice to look at the business domain defined by your application and try to replicate that into your schema. Right at the end, when you're writing SpiceDB, you're talking about you're going to be reflecting like very obvious, like very clear business intent, and when you do it that way, typically things work pretty well. So that's a great place to start always. Just like, don't even start with your permissions if you don't want. You can start by, writing out the concepts that exist and then how they relate to each other. And then you can start into the implementation details of the permissions. And as you go, then you would see whether you need to move things around. But typically this is a great place to start. And so we have members, we have roles, and we need to also think, how do I grant a user role? So let's go back to the user interface, Discord users interface, and you can see that we have the moderator, role here. And well, I haven't done much with it yet, but I'm just gonna, I'm gonna give it the permission to send messages, and that's it. And I want to give this to Sohan. Should be around, I think. I hope.
just the two folks in the Discord server.
There you go.
Yeah.
So now Zohan has been granted moderator role, and then therefore with this role, he's granted with a set of permissions that are defined here, right? So we've just added a member to the role. So to me, it feels natural to go to our definition and define here relation members user. I think this makes a lot of sense to me. You might remember that we have something that is the everyone role. And so the everyone role, it says that everyone in the server has that role. So as soon as you join, you have the everyone role. And so if anytime somebody joins Discord, your Discord server, you had to write a member here, that would be a bit annoying and a bit of a waste of database resources. So there's another way here in SpiceDB, which is a really powerful concept that allows you to reference not a relation somewhere else, but allows you to, it allows you to reference a relation instead of an object, right? So here I'm saying members are of type user, but I can also say, members of a role can be the members of a server. So this is very powerful because now this allows us to define the everyone role by basically pointing to all the members of the server. So anytime you add somebody to the server as a member, it automatically will be part of that role because the everyone role will be pointing to it. So we can do this here as well. And so we can say, let me see, we have a role that is called everyone, and it's the members of the role is going to be the members of the server odd set members, right? So we're saying, the role everyone server, the members of the role everyone are the members of the server odd set, right?
Yeah.
So now if I say, I add a couple of members here, I'm going to add a couple of them here. We have Victor, Sohan, and Atrol, because we're going to be also demonstrating later on, how the timeouts work. We have the everyone role, and all of these folks belong to that place. So if I do this, set permission check, I want to check, who are everyone members. So you can do permission checks on permissions, but you can also run that on top of any relations, which is what I'm doing here. So I want to check, the role everyone members, give me, does it have access to the odd set? No, I think I'm doing this wrong. yeah, let's scrap that. This is not what I wanted to show. What I wanted to show is I want to now like show, if everyone, how can we link that everyone role? We can make it, do something, right?
Hmm.
So we have the role here, and in Discord, the roles, they have permissions that are defined by the server admin, the server owner, and so I would expect, so they have this list of fine-grained permissions. So I would expect also to be able to have lists such as something along the line of this, you know. So, but I could say the members of the role have this permission, but you are not achieving that toggle behavior that Discord has. Just as a reminder here, you can have this, right? So you can do like click, click. I can turn things on and off. So how do we do that? There is a very interesting concept in SpiceDB, which is the wildcard. The wildcard, it effectively means anyone of a certain type. So it can be used for several things. It can be used for like visibility. So you can, for instance, you could implement in GitHub's model, you could implement like a public repo using the wildcard. So you can basically say, by writing this relationship, you could use that to say every user has read access to a repo. So that's how you would implement, public visibility on GitHub. And then there's a second really nifty trick that you can do with wildcards, which is that you can use it as a feature flag or as a kill switch. You could basically say, because if you intersect the user wildcard with any user, so that the result of that is going to be that user. So if we say Victor and user wildcard, that's equal to Victor. But if it's not defined, then the result will be none.
Hmm.
And so you
So,
can
Victor, I
use.
have a question here. Sorry, I'm going to jump in. You mentioned the intersection, right? So, is there a representation in the
Mhm.
SpiceDB playground to do that intersection between, like, say, two different sets of things?
That's right. The intersection looks like this. It's the ampersand, and it's an intersection of two sets essentially. And so here I could do like members and view channel enabled. So what this is doing is view channel is going to be the members of this role, so long the view channel feature flag or whatever you want to name it, it's enabled, right? So if we didn't have this, this would basically be an intersection with like nothing, and then nothing intersected with member equals nothing. But if you intersect it with the user wildcard, the result will be the members. So this is effectively how you turn permissions on and off with a role. And it's a
Hmm.
pretty common pattern that you see typically folks do when they're doing like fine-grained permissions in SpiceDB, essentially. So let's actually see how this could work in practice. So I'm gonna now try to link the role to the channel permissions just to see things working in practice. So we know the roles are defined here. We have the roles here. So how do we get to view channel from in the role from a channel? So I can do this. I can basically say, view channel is the administrator has the view channel, but also any anybody in the server that has view channel. So we haven't defined this just yet, so let's actually do that. So the view channel in the server looks like something along the lines of this. So I'm going to say the administrator for sure,
Hmm.
but also I want to have the roles that I have in my server I'm going to name these roles actually plural, and the roles that have those roles that have so the members of the roles that have view channel access, right? So if I go here, what is it complaining for? A row under permission view channel references relation permission view channel that doesn't exist in the subject of the relation roles, which is not true. Most likely
You
another one
might
of
have
those.
to just refresh. Yeah.
Yeah, weird one. This must be a recent regression, but you can see now the view channel here. And so now we have linked, and we're saying, from let's actually walk, view channel server. We go to the server and we go to the view channel in the server. And here, let me see. Here we have view channel, and then in the server we're saying, the members of the roles that have view channel permission. And here we have the members of this role that also have the role, the permission enabled. Let's see this in practice now with test relationship, because I think it will become a bit more obvious. So I'm going to, well, we have the everyone role now, okay? And I also want to, assign, we're saying that everyone in the offset server, so what happened here? Oh, yeah. All the members of the offset server are part of the role everyone, and I want to give the role everyone the view channel permission, and I do that by
That's the wildcard, right?
exactly. We are writing the wildcard. We're saying, everyone and that has this role will have the view channel permission. And now I think if we go here to the terminal, I think we should be able to, I might be missing something, but we'll go over it. Set permission check. I want to check that, for the channel SpiceDB, I want to check the view channel permission, and I want to see, for instance, if user Victor has the access to it. So it's saying false. So let's see why that is. So when I do explain, it walks from the channel, it checks administrator, this branch we are not interested. Then it goes to the server, and it goes to administrator again. So what's going on here?
Is there like a circular dependency maybe that?
This is still, I may be missing something.
Maybe when you change roles to role, was it?
Roles, we have roles. Do we have the roles somewhere written?
Is it?
We have to write the role to the server. Yes, so we don't have the everyone role assigned, right? We have to add it to the roles of the server. So let's add it here. Does this work now? What did I do? Server outset roles role everyone, and it's saying that this is incorrect because it's not roles. Or is it? Oh, it's, of course, I have to.
Yeah.
It's the type is incorrect. Now, when I run this, I get true. So let's see how this works. It goes from channel. Let me bump this up. We have the channel. From the channel, we jump to the server view channel. And then from the server, we jump to the role, everyone. And then everyone to the members of everyone. And the members of everyone are the members of the server outset. And here I am. And then it also says, well, you have to intersect this with the feature flag view channel enable. And effectively, it makes me also be part of that group. And so that's how I am part of it. If I, for instance, I removed the feature flag, so this thing here, which is effectively the same as going to the UI and modifying your role, then I should get denied. Here it is. because the permission is no longer enabled in the role. So
Can you do the explain with the Slack? Yeah, let's see how it.
yep. So you can see that it also got to the same place, but because the view channel enable feature flag is not there, then it just cancels everything up, and then that's the result, false, right?
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to look at the checklist now to give maybe a quick recap for folks who just joined. And so again, Victor is showing us how you can model Discord's permission systems. We spoke about how Discord has, a server owner. I don't know if you can read the text, but let's assume maybe you can. Or wait, I can do this and then move to this, and now maybe you can see it. Yeah, we did server level members, server level roles. We did an
Owner.
administrator permission, which allows permissions for like across. We did an everyone default role, which is when someone joins a channel, this is the thing that they're assigned, so you can view a channel. And Victor also showed us how that role can be modified, right? You can actually modify the so sweet. We've done quite a bit so far. Again, folks, this is office hours, so if you have any questions or just want to hit us up with some shit posting in the comments, everything's welcome. Let's be nice, of course. And
Be nice.
be nice, yeah. But yes, very welcome. And let's continue, Victor.
Yeah. All right. So we've written off a couple of features here already with just a very relatively simple schema so far, right? So let's jump into the permission overrides. Permission overrides, as I mentioned earlier, allows you to go to a channel and say, I wanna change, for the everyone role, I wanna change, what permissions does this guy have, right? So, or users, and so like we have the permission override here, and so let's now think, how can we do this? Essentially, we now have to evaluate the permissions that we have until now, but also we have to refine those permissions with overrides. So the Discord documentation shows a pseudocode snippet where it describes, how permission overrides work. So I would refer everybody to go to the documentation and look at the snippet, because it's kind of intricate. It has a bunch of details on how things work, and some of this will be I can go over it in here. I think the primary, more interesting part of it is that the overrides are executed in a specific sequence. So essentially, it always starts with, if I'm not misremembering, it always starts with, let me see my notes. It first always, looks at what permissions have been removed from a role. Then it adds whatever permissions have been added to a role. And then it goes into removing or revoking permissions from a user. And then it adds permissions from. So it goes in that order for a reason. And we're going to be looking at this here now. So an override, my intuition tells me, or by looking at the UI, I know that when you select a UI, you're saying that there's a role here. So there has to be a role that is part of the override for sure. So I'm going to add a role here. But I also know that we can also, as you can see here in the UI, I can also add members and refine the permissions of a member. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to also add a user. So to me, the way an override works is, very similar to a role. It just, it will also have a toggle, an on and off toggle. If you see here, I can basically add something or remove something, right? So it's like a very similar kind of like kill switch or on and off toggle as we saw in the role, right? So I feel like this is something that we can implement again with the same pattern. So I'm going to add my view channel permission in the override, and I'm going to also add the send message. Well, send message. We haven't used it so far, but let's just add there. Send message, and I'm going to add the gating, the toggles here. And so how do we do this now? So essentially, we are saying, for a specific, role, or let's start with the user perhaps, which is more simple. For a specific user, override is going to grant a permission, so long the permission is enabled at the override, right? And we can do the same thing for send message. But also, what happens? Also, we have the roles, right? So we have the roles, and roles have members. So what I want to do is, for a role, I'm going to traverse to the members and going to add it. This is, this is basically you're summing up the sets. You're joining the sets of users and the members of a role. This is the symbol we use, the plus symbol here. So I'm gonna do this here as well. And essentially, an override allows me to define whether it's influencing the permissions of a specific role members, and whether they are on or off for members of a role or for a user, right? So we're traversing to the members of a role. Let me double check. Yes, and this now let's put in practice how this override would work at the channel level. And so we know that the overrides are at the channel level. Basically, we have to click on the channel settings and define an override. So to me, it seems natural to add a relation to an override here. So I could say override. But I'm not going to do it that way, and I'm going to explain why. So as I mentioned earlier, there is this precedence or this order in which Discord's documentation defines how overrides work, right? It says first, I'm going to revoke, I'm going to remove from role overrides, then I'm going to add, then I'm going to remove from user overrides, and then I'm going to add from user overrides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decouple that, because my override doesn't have a notion of like I'm an add, I'm a removal. So I'm going to make it explicit here. So what I'm going to do is do this and just copy my reference schema, and I'm going to say there's going to be overrides that are granting, there's going to be overrides that are revoking for roles,
Right.
and there's going to be overrides that are granting for a user, and overrides are revoking for a user. And the reason we do this is precisely because of that order, that precedence that the Discord model specifies.
I think for me the interesting thing, Victor, which is I think like at a very meta point, is using a system like Reback or relationship-based access control gives you the flexibility to do all of this, right? For instance, if say Discord decides to change their permission system a little bit, it would boil down to them just changing their schema a bit, and it would be able to model the newer system, right? So I think that's what pops out to me when you're describing such intricate permissions that Discord has built, but it's fairly simple to model it using the schema.
If you think about it, that's exactly right. And if you think about it, Discord went and wrote a pseudocode to describe the semantics, and we're not writing like any like code here that it's giving instructions. It's just it's defining a graph with operations. It's going to translate to the same thing, but it shows you that you have also a lot of flexibility and the kind of things that you can define with the SpiceDB schema.
Yeah. Jess is saying, really make sure you've locked down the channel where we all talk smack about Victor. Well, now we know who the troll in the Discord channel in the server is.
It was you, Jess. It was you all this time.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, let's go and wire up. Now we have the overrides on the channel, and we want to define, or we want to show that precedence, that order in which things are executed. And so the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to explicitly, use parentheses to, for me to help me reason about this. I'm going to say, like the roles that are defined, whatever permissions are defined at the role at the server level, I'm going to start with that as the, building block for solving this permission. And now I'm going to be adding or carving out permissions based on these overrides, right? So for instance, for the revoke, I'm going to just subtract it. I'm going to remove it. So I'm saying, for whatever you had before, now remove everything that is being defined by this override, by this role override. So we do it this way. Also note that administrator is left off, right? It's not part of these equations. So like you cannot influence the semantics of the administrator. It takes precedence over everything else, right? So you cannot revoke, and this is also explicitly described in the documentation. The administrator permission doesn't abide by any overrides. So if you have it, you have it. I'm going to
Victor, we have a question from David, which maybe we can go through right now. So, David, thanks for the question. David asks, through RBAC, is there a way to provide a list of capabilities to a website to manage the display or hiding of components or actions? And what would be the pattern to provide this? So let me just clarify if this is our understanding of the question, David, and feel free to ask follow-up questions. But basically, you're saying, I log into a website and the website, the backend's implemented RBAC. So I can see a certain bunch of components and actions based on the permissions that have been granted to me, right? So I assume that's the use case you're talking about. Yeah, Victor?
Yeah, totally. And it follows the very same pattern that we see here. When we're building a role-based access control, then you define how fine those roles are. You can, if you think about, for instance, GitHub, for the longest, GitHub had just reader, writer, and then admin as part of kind of like the three roles that you could set folks to in a repo, in a repository. That changed over the course of over the course of a couple of years, but it always started with those three permissions or three roles, and those comprise multiple permissions, right? So a reader can do a bunch of things in the UI, in the repo UI. The writer can do a bunch of other stuff, and those are just multiple permissions. You can see a role as a bag of permissions, right? So if you want to build a UI that allows you to have capabilities, and you can have a user see certain things and other things not allowed to see, you can do this with RBAC. You can basically start to carve out finer permissions for in your role for each one of those things that you want to hide or you want to made governed using permissions, right? So if you think about Discord, and you have one specific action like send message, you would basically be graying out, for instance, in the UI, the button to send message. That's a capability. Your user is not allowed to send a message, so the UI has to reflect that, right? This, in turn, means that when you're rendering the UI, you have to do all these permission checks all the time. And there are different patterns for this, right? If you're, for instance, like loading a web page, you could do with a SpiceDB bulk check. You could say, I want to check all these different permissions. I want to check multiple permissions. This is one strategy. You could also use reflection, and then with reflection, basically feed that into the bulk check. Or gRPC also is very powerful, and it allows you to send lots of messages over the same gRPC channel. So you can basically like send one-off permission checks that are loaded as your application loads. You can basically essentially have multiple components, and you can async load and check each one of them. SpiceDB is going to be totally fine with that, and essentially gives you that level of granularity to implement capabilities in a UI.
Yeah, great answer. Yeah, David, if you have any
long-winded answer, but I hope that.
No, I think that covered everything. David, again, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to hit us up in the chat. Yeah, but good question.
Cool. Yeah, totally super frequent use case most people use. All right. So what I just did here is just to continue with this, order in which overwrites are executed. I started by, carving out those permissions from defined at the channel level for the view channel permission in this specific case. And then I'm going to add, I'm going to have all those overwrites that say, you know what, I'm actually giving view channel access to people in this channel, because in this channel, actually, fun fact: the view channel, and this is something that I wanted to mention, and I actually mentioned it earlier, but I didn't just clarify. The view channel permission, effectively, when you revoke it, it turns effectively the channel as private. So if you
Right.
go to under the hood, it's just a permission, but on the UI, it looks like this concept of uh, uh, channel visibility, or private channels or public channels, right? So you can totally do that. You can totally tweak, the visibility of a channel by revoking that permission specifically. So you see that when I hit this, when I enable the private channel, it immediately
Yeah.
removed from everyone the view channel permission. And if I actually go and do this, I did it in the permission, I didn't do it here, then private channel was turned off immediately. So that's how the channel visibility or private versus public, I guess, channels is implemented. It's just one permission, which is the view channel permission. Cool. So okay, we've done this, and let's just finish this off. Essentially, I'm going to add the rest, which is the user revoke comes next, and this is defined in the docs. And finally, I'm going to add, essentially saying that first we evaluate the roles and then we evaluate the users, right? It makes sense, right? Because, well, you could be giving somebody access, a user, but then some role tells you that it should not have that access. It's contradictory. It makes sense that the user permissions take precedence over role permission. So actually, this is wrong. It should be minus, right? We are removing
Yeah.
whoever has been granted that, overridden. And then finally, we have the user grant, and same view channel. So let's put this in practice. Let's see this actually working. So let me see. So we said that Victor, it's part of the everyone channel. And now I'm going to say, well, I want to see if Victor has, send message.
Mm-hmm.
But because we didn't have the send message permission on the everyone role, Victor doesn't have access to this. The owner does, because they're admin, but Victor doesn't. So now I'm going to create a override at the role level so that everyone have access to this. I could define it at the server level. I could say, everyone has send message, and I believe that's the default. There's a set of permissions that are set by default for the everyone role that's specified on the documentation. I don't know from the top of my head, but out of the scope of this demonstration. What I want to focus on is how the role overrides work, and then how the user override work in practice. All right, so I want to create then. See if I can go fast by just copying and pasting and making sure I don't make any mistakes. Yes. So I have. Let me see. Let's say that we have the override announcements. It's called announcements, and we're going to give everybody the send message override permission. Okay, yes, I'm gonna do this. Yeah, this is how I planned it. So I'm gonna give everyone the send message enable. I'm gonna enable for everybody that you can send messages now. So now that this that I did earlier, right? That I didn't have
Yeah.
permission. Bummer. Did I probably didn't. I didn't. Oh yeah, I didn't implement any of this here. This is in the channel. This is implemented here. Yes, I need to. I'm just going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to copy it here, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
instead of view channel, this has to be send message, right?
Yeah. Because the overrides are, yeah.
Permission specific, that's right. Right. So now, don't fail me. Oh man, failing miserably. Explain what's
Wait,
going
let
on.
me also take a look.
So we're going from send message, server.
Do you have the and view channel when you're sending messages? Will that break it?
No.
It won't break it, right? Yeah.
No. Let me see. It's by I see that it's not jumping to the server. So why is it not jumping to the server? I think I'm missing the. I mean, I'm missing the. Sorry, the announcements. No, it's there. So I'm saying the announcements channel belongs to server. Oh yeah, because I'm not using the right.
Oh,
Well,
channel.
it should announcements. I mean, I think it should work anyway. It should not work anyway, because I think the previous one should work. Send message, and I want to see what's going on here. So it's just jumping from announcements to admin, and that doesn't work. So it feels like the channel server is not set, but it is. Announcements, send message, channel. Let me make sure here. Yeah, I have all of this, and I'm not missing anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Racer also says wrong channel, but yeah, I think it should be for both channels. Yeah.
The everyone is here. Everyone role is here, and then we have the override. Outside server has the role, and then yeah, why is it not jumping from the server send message? Let me just make sure that I refresh so that those annoying administrator channel. Let me walk. So permission check channel announcements send message and user Victor.
Also Z. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's right. And when I explain this, it's going from announcement channel, and the announcement is jumping to administrator. So I'm missing the server, but it's there, right? Announcements. Did I misspell any of this? It's here. It's jumping to send message. Why is it not jumping? This is the override, which I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm trying to check for typos perhaps in announcements.
Odd said, right? But it's not jumping. What a weird one. Let me just do this for now, just in case I messed up some of this.
Yeah.
I have, so that's something. And it said server send message. Sorry. And it's complaining because servers and message under permission reference relation permissions and message that doesn't exist in any subtype of server relation. But it's here. Okay. So permission check. It said, sorry, channel announcements. Send message. User Victor. I feel like I'm missing something super obvious, and I'm not seeing it right now. The things of life.
Yeah, yeah. So that's just announcements, send message.
Of course, the permission is not defined. I think I was looking at. Oh man, I think I was looking at.
Oh, there's no send.
I was looking at roles, and I was like, yeah, it is there, but I was looking at the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Okay. It was,
Just
so
define
sorry
the.
about that.
Hey,
Send
that's what
message.
makes live streams exciting, right?
So now if I do this, there you go. Now Victor has access because it goes from the channel to the server send message permission, and then it's granted via the everyone role, which is enabled, right? Right. So let's go back to what I was doing in the first place. So I'm just going to copy the definition of send message, which I had here. Where am I? Let me share that item.
And in the meanwhile, I'm going to update the checklist. So maybe
Yes.
I'll take Victor's screen off for just a second and move it like this. Oh, this view doesn't work. Yeah. So we did permission overrides, we did base permissions, we did server level role assignment, role overrides, user overrides as well. So we've covered like a ton already.
Yes. All right. So what we wanted to do in the first place is first show that everyone has access to, well, everyone, in this case it was me, but I'm part of the everyone role, can send message on the announcements channel. But in announcements channel, I want to just announce stuff. I don't want people send any messages. Maybe I want them to react, and then maybe I want just a few users like Sohan to be able to send a message, right? Because they are part of the team, and then they can send those announcements messages. So what I'm going to do now is try to add that override that says that no one should have in the everyone team should have these overrides or the send permission, right? So I'm gonna say we have the override here for the everyone role, and I'm gonna toggle turn on that kill switch for the send message overwritten permission, and I'm going to assign these to the channel, right? So I'm gonna say announcement channels. I'm gonna revoke through an override, and that override is called announcements. So let's see what happens now. Now, if I do explain again, false. So I no longer have that permission, right? Because the override kicks in. The override kind of like cancels out everything that the everyone role allowed me to do. Okay, so what we've explored now is this part here, essentially. We've revoked with the override, and let's just visually see, what we just did. It's equivalent to this. This is the everyone, and no one is going to, I just clicked here, no one is going to be able to send messages. So I just did this, right? For one specific channel. This is the announcements channel. Now, what I want to do is to actually give Sohan permission to, he's going to be the only one that has permission to send messages over. So if I check now here on the, by the way, there's other parts of the UI that I haven't gone over, explain. We have check watches, which is also a very nice way to visually see all of this. So let's actually, look at this now. So I can say, for instance, for channel announcements, I want to, test the send message permission. and I want to test, user Sohan. And you can see that, Sohan doesn't have the permission, right? Because, it will give us the same kind of like a drill down, kind of like, why is this not happening? This is also the same output that we get from the explain. And this is because of the overwrite. But what I want to do now is to overwrite that overwrite, which is like, remember that in Discord, there is this precedence. Like first we evaluate overwrites for roles, and then we evaluate overwrites for users, which makes sense. You go from less specific to more specific. So I want to, and so we should see live how these changes as we add the permissions. So I'm gonna create a I'm gonna say user base overrides comment, and I'm gonna add Sohan to an override, which is called Sohan announcements.
Not the first time.
And I'm gonna, in that override, I'm gonna say, well, I'm gonna enable the send message. Well, I'm gonna toggle that thing, because in the override itself, it doesn't have any notion of like on and off. It's just like, a kill switch. And then now I'm going to grant this to the announcements channel. You saw what happened? It just turned green.
Yeah.
Right? If I turn it off, it goes red. If I assign the override, it goes green. But this only happens to Sohan because I just did that. So if we check Victor again, send message, we can see that Victor is not allowed because he it doesn't have any like override for himself. It's only to Sohan. And this is it. This is kind of how Discord implemented this kind of like, flexible, cascading behavior from server. We have like global permissions defined at the role level. There's the everyone's role. And then we start like defining with overrides at the channel level what people can do. And we can see here an example where like we revoked from the everyone role that no one can send the message. So it's effectively happening here. And you can see that I was revoked of that permission, but we can see that, for instance, that doesn't happen on other channels. So if I go to the SpiceDB channel and I go and say, send message, and I go and click Victor, I do have permission. So you can see that, and the announcements channel has overrides. It has more specific behavior that's only happening there. And
nice.
And then we can see that we also took advantage of the precedence that user has over role overrides, right? So that is it. That is overrides in a nutshell. It's a good chunk of the specification and Discord's description. And it's pretty simple. If I didn't mess it up myself, the channel definition is relatively simple to implement.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, so we've gone a little over time, but we needed to show the timeouts feature, which I think is a very cool feature that both Discord has, but also you can implement using SpiceDB. So Victor, let's take it home and let's look at the timeouts feature.
Sure. So I wanted to show timeouts. Well, I mean, we implemented all I did go over every single feature and basically cover mostly everything except for I think two aspects of the documentation. But timeouts are really interesting because they're time-based, right? So you're saying, when I go here, let me show how it looks in the UI. And Sohan showed me how it was done. Because like I didn't know how it... Yeah. Sohan, you were overly excited when you joined, and you need to calm down for a bit. So you can see that you can time out Sohan. You can say, for how long to time out Sohan. So essentially timing out just revokes specific permissions from Sohan. This is all defined in the documentation. Is very specific. So we're gonna show how this works. So there is a new feature in SpiceDB that would have been super nice to show today, and it's actually just recently released, which is called expiring relationships. I'm just only going to show what it would look like because unfortunately the support for expiring relationships, it's currently in APR, and I didn't have the chance for building this thing locally and just for the demo. Busy day, but it's pretty simple. Essentially, this is what it would look like if you wanted to use expiring rels. What is expiring rels? What is expiring relationships? Essentially, it's a relationship that will expire after a certain time. So you can write, for instance, say, this overwrite, you could say, I'm gonna do that overwrite, but only for 15 minutes. So this is really like what I just described is something that Discord doesn't support, but SpiceDB brings to the table because of its power. And in just a few lines, you could now have timed overrides. That's pretty interesting. It's a new flexible construct that users could be interested in. But what we want to see it's these temporal bans, essentially, just a temporal timeout that allows users to like not do anything for a specific amount of time. And so if I wanted to do this with expiring relations, I would do like, there's a new use construct that we're going to be using moving forward with the language that allows us to turn on and off new features. And then you could say, you can mark any relationship with an expiration. So I'm going to define a relation at the server level, because this is at the server level, right? I'm going to timeout. I'm going to define a timeout. And so it would be a user. But how, like, that's cool. Like, okay, we have a timeout. I'm going to actually implement it now. I'm going to say, view channel. I'm gonna note that I'm gonna be using parentheses here because like you cannot time out administrators, right?
Yeah.
So I'm explicitly excluding. I'm excluding administrators from timeouts. You cannot kick me, Sohan.
Yeah. Also, I'm just
So
going to quickly jump in, Victor, because someone, actually Bob Aman from whose LinkedIn actually says works at Discord, asked if will the recording be made available after. Yeah, Bob. So this is also streaming to our YouTube channel, and it'll be there on our YouTube. So I can put the link on our chat as well. But yeah, thanks for watching.
yes, and we will also share at the end the schema that we built with all the features, and that we'll probably not have time to go over all of them, but you can actually go and inspect how I built all of this. So now the timeout, I could add a timeout, but this is permanent. If I write something here, I'm going to be Sohan is going to be timed out forever, and that's not how it works. It has to have some sort of like timing, right?
Again, not the first time. I think.
Not the first time. I see a pattern here.
Yeah.
So, with expiration, you would just do this. You would say user with expiration. It reads beautifully, in my opinion, but I'm biased, I guess. So you can see that right now it's just showing an error, right? Because this is not supported right now in the playground, but this would be supported from SpiceDB 140 on. And essentially you write it in the schema like this. And then at the right time, when you're performing the right relationships operation, you can now have a timestamp, and then at that timestamp will define when the relation will expire. And once that timestamp elapses, effectively it's as if the relationship was deleted from the system. So I just wanted to show like how this looks like. Unfortunately, I cannot demo it today. So instead, I'm going to show another feature that SpiceDB has, which is the caveats. And we, until relationship expirations came, we used to implement this with caveats. And caveats allows you to implement policy on top of like SpiceDB language. And it's just like a construct that allows you to specify evaluation of specific criteria based on more like explicit behavior using like a language. Here this is called Google Cells language, expression language. And I just created this caveat called timeout. It has 3 arguments, and this looks like a function in any language. And you can see that it's saying the timeout is defined by the timeout, what is the current time. And this is one of the kind of like downsides of doing this via caveats, which is like you have to provide the timestamp that represents now, which is kind of annoying. And so that's one of the many reasons we implemented first class
Expiring.
support.
Yeah.
The other main driver for this was that those caveated relationships, they no longer, so they no longer are part of the computation. Well, they are actually part of the computation. They will not be part of the result, but unfortunately, they remain in the database. So if you want to have these expiring things happening, they just keep piling up in your SpiceDB instance, and that's not great. You have to basically evacuate that from the database, right? So that's why we built the main reason why we built expiring rails. But with timeout, it works very similar. We just add the with clause and then the timeout. So now we just made timeout, temporal. So let's show this now working in practice. I'm going to, well, remember we had a troll. That troll, it's still here. It's not you, Sohan. Now it's going to be the troll.
It's okay. Thank God. Yeah.
We have the troll, and the troll, it's being super annoying, and you know what, it's time to calm the troll down for a bit. What's this? The send channel. Oh, the send channel is not found under definition of a channel. Okay. What are you talking about? Of course it is.
No,
I chose the wrong
one. Yeah.
Auto completion here. Okay, so you can see the troll for now. It can send messages to the SpiceDB channel, but it's time to give it a timeout. So I'm going to give it a timeout. This is again like a channel wide. So, oh, by the way, I have to also do this, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna add a relationship, and I'm just gonna copy and paste it here, and I'm just gonna hope that I get right the timestamp, timeout. So I have this timeout, and I'm saying, I'm gonna give the user a 1 hour timeout, and I have to change the timestamp here, make sure that we are today's the 30th, and
this is in UTC, right? Which is
UTC, right?
Yeah. So your time zone. So
let me timestamp generator and just copy the timestamp because I had one of generate. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna get the RFC, this guy, and this is the time now. So I'm creating. No, this is the local time right here, right now, and I'm gonna time out the user for an hour. Okay. So you can see that this changed now. It's like question mark. What does question mark mean? Question mark means I was not. It's maybe. Why? Because as I mentioned earlier, there's two arguments that we've stored in the relationship, which is timeout and the timeout timestamp, creation timestamp, but we're missing one, which is now, right?
What's timeout?
So, like, we can add now here. You can say, now, and I'm going to paste the same thing. And then you can see now that this went from that question mark, because we were missing some context to especially it was missing some argument to evaluate. It went to red, right? Because now, the troll has been timed out for an hour. And now what happens if time passes and 1 hour has passed? Now the troll is back. After an hour, the troll is back. And so that's how you can implement timeouts with caveats. There's a lot of different use cases you can do also with timeouts, like IP allowlets is another really common one. But moving forward, if you're doing timeouts or you're doing like TTLs or anything related to that, TTLs meaning like more generally speaking the time to live, you can do that with the new feature in SpiceDB 140, the timeout, the expiring relationships. That's the timeout functionality. There's also a couple of other functionalities. I think we're over time. I would love to go over all of them, but I'm sure we also have questions to go over in the
Yeah,
channel, and
but
we will share the schema at the end,
Mhm.
and you can play with it.
Yeah, Victor, quick question for you about that. So I have the schema that we had when we, did the dry run, basically. So should I go ahead and share that, or do you want to share the one that's on your screen right now?
Let's do both. You can let me make sure that I copy the URL because I did some like modification, last minute
Okay.
modification. I'm
Yeah,
just copy.
then
Should I put it in the? I'm gonna
in
send
the
it to
private chat.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I don't have permission to write. This is
yeah,
the link for the kind of like bigger schema with all the functionality, and
yeah.
I'm gonna now kind of like share this one, which is the current one, just in case you want to play with it. Maybe you want to kind of like build the rest of it.
Mhm. Okay, so folks, we're going to share two schemas. Schema on stream. I'm going to share it in the comments. Okay, schema on stream. These are shareable, so feel free to play around with it. Yeah, and like Victor said, you can also add to it and sort of get a sense of how it is. For folks watching on LinkedIn, I've also posted it there, so Bob and other people. Yeah, Victor, I think we are a little over time, but I think now is when, we can start winding down. Maybe we can do a future stream where we talk about expiring Rails as well, as soon as, SpiceDB 1.4 is released and it's in the playground as well. David, yes, timestamps are cool. This is part of caveats. So if you're looking at a documentation, look at caveats on SpiceDB. Bunch of cool things you can actually do with this, like time-bound permissions, but also like session-bound permissions and IP allow lists, as Victor mentioned. So we have a blog post about that as well. Victor, final thoughts before we wind down?
No, I think that was a really cool exercise. I love Discord. As a gamer myself, I've been using
Yeah.
it. Before being an odd setter, I've been using it for connecting with my friends, and now I just had this really lovely opportunity to kind of intersect kind of like Discord in my personal life with like my
Yeah.
job and show the world how Discord has built a pretty compelling authorization model that makes people happy. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Nice. For me, two things. One, thanks everyone for watching. David and Bob, Reza, Jess, who else? Yordis, and everyone else who watched along with us. Two, we have our own Discord server, which is fairly active, and all of us hang out there. If you have any questions about SpiceDB, AuthZ, authorization, jump into our Discord and let us know. If you like the stream, also just let us know. And we do this every fortnight. So 2 weeks from now, same time, I'll be on stream with Veronica, and we're talking about implementing performance and load testing for databases, specifically SpiceDB. And we'll be talking about some cool stuff like Grafana K6 and some features over there, and how we are, thinking about load testing using these new tools. So if that's the sort of stuff that interests you, make sure you join. David says, an example at the height of an impressive tool. Thank you, guys. Oh, thanks so much, David. And thank you, Reza, as well, for watching in. Yeah, that's about it. I hope to see you on our Discord channel. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either of us on Discord, LinkedIn, whatever. Victor, thank you so much. That was an amazing demo, because I learned so much just watching all of this today as well. So thank you so much. And we'll have you on stream again very soon. Thanks, folks. Have a good one.
Goodbye, everybody.